So one of the reasons I love my work, that I love being an academic but within a business school, is that I get to answer questions that are not only psychologically or sociologically interesting, but that have real impact on organizations. Hi, I'm Chris Myers. I'm a doctoral research fellow in the Center for Positive Organizations, and I'm really passionate about understanding how people learn, develop, and grow at work. Now, we typically think of learning as something that happens in the classroom or in an organizational training context, but the reality is that most of our learning occurs in our day-to-day interactions and experiences that we have in the workplace. Now, in addition to understanding how individuals learn from their own experiences at work, my research also explores how people learn from others' experiences, what's known as vicarious learning. Now, when people learn from others' experiences, they're able to pull the lessons of those experiences, combine it with their own knowledge, and oftentimes reveal new or innovative solutions that they wouldn't have been able to come up with on their own. It also allows them to avoid repeating errors or reinventing the wheel within the organization. But this can be a tough thing to pull off at work. In fact, HR Magazine reported that Fortune 500 companies lose about $31.5 billion a year just from failing to share knowledge and learn from each other's experiences within the organization. And so in my research, I try to understand how is it that people are actually able to effectively learn from others' experiences within the organization. And one of the contexts that I study this in is air medical transport teams. Now, these are teams that travel, typically by helicopter, to pick up patients either from the scene of an accident or from a small community hospital that may have exceeded its capacity to care for a particular patient. And they transport those patients back to a large tertiary care center to receive advanced treatment. You know, this is a context where learning from others is particularly important because these teams face a wide variety of different patients, and trial and error is a very costly method. And so for them, sharing stories of prior experiences with one another is a really important part of their learning process. And so this isn't a simple matter of putting people together and trying to get them to talk to one another and learn, but it really requires organized efforts from the organization, from leaders, and from employees themselves to craft an environment where people can learn effectively from one another. And this involves three distinct stages of efforts that promote vicarious learning. And I call these stages enabling, enacting, and elaborating vicarious learning. When we think about enabling vicarious learning, this is about using structures and practices to create a baseline understanding throughout the organization. You can think of this as kind of creating shared norms and language among people in the organization so that they understand what others are doing and can effectively share that knowledge. The second stage, enacting vicarious learning, is all about the actual interactions that people have where they share their experiences with one another through telling stories of prior encounters that they've had. And so what's important here is to understand how you can create the physical space as well as the time necessary to allow people to engage in this storytelling and sharing of experiences. And so the important thing is creating this shared time and space, creating the proverbial water cooler where individuals can gather and share stories of prior experiences. Now, the final stage of vicarious learning is elaborating the learning. And this is really a debriefing process of reinforcing what comes out of these interactions and stories from others, as they take the lessons from others' experiences and combine it with their own knowledge to really crystallize an understanding of what they can do going forward based on that learning. It really requires active efforts to debrief and reflect on what you learned from another's experience in order to turn that into useful knowledge that can be applied to future problems. Organizations today are really facing an environment where increasingly people don't know what they're going to get into next, where reinventing the wheel is very costly, and where learning from others' experiences is a really critical part of being successful. And so whether it's an air medical transport team, whether it's a consulting team, or whether it's a manufacturing team, I'm really excited to understand how organizations and the people within them craft workplaces that really enhance individual learning and development.